All right. Just a second. I'm still setting up here. All right. Camera's in place. I just need to get our tools and our project. So, there you go. All right. Sorry about the delay there. But welcome back to the Friday Open Studio Design session, build session. This is really, again, if you're new around here, this is intended to be an open studio kind of environment so that you can work on your projects while I work on mine. And we kind of have this creative atmosphere, creative studio environment through the power of the internet. So that's kind of how I run these things. Again, every Friday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern time. So I guess this week we are going to continue working on the Astra, which you see right here. This is an original design. So it's looking pretty nice right now, if I say so myself. But yeah, we're just going to continue working on this. Last week, we continued to panel some of the areas on the top of this design, namely this middle piece right here. This really helped smooth out the side profile, right? So it's a little bit rough still, but I think this is as smooth as we're probably gonna get it. It's looking quite nice. If I zoom out a little bit, this is what it looks like overall, the plan form. Right, the nose has a nice side profile. Let me just grab a white piece of paper or something to provide some contrast here. So if I grab this and put it in the back, you can see the side profile a lot better. So this looks pretty neat. It's very subtle curve, right? Comes down and back. Or actually it kind of goes straight, but I think this panel is starting to separate off a little bit, so I'll have to fix that. So that's going to be the first thing to be fixed. And then after that, we can do a cover down the middle so that the seam gets erased away. And then we can, continue our build from there. I think today we're going to add a nose cone, just to really sharpen up this nose, because there's a lot of layers here that you see. Doesn't really look too clean, so we want to really work on that a little bit, fix that. And then after that, we have to work on this rear portion here, really have to cover this up, and also develop a kind of landing gear system, which should be interesting. That's a little bit more mechanical in nature, so we'll be doing that. Let's take a break real quick. Again, today is a little bit warm, so if my phone overheats and this stream gets interrupted, just know that I'll be starting a new stream, and just try and look for that instead. It'll be split into two parts. I have a feeling it might crash out today. So anyways, all right. So I guess we can get started. So first thing we're gonna do is make some repairs to this area right here, because it's not securely attached. This is the section where the canards are interfacing with the fuselage. So as you can see, this needs to be really tight and not have any parts move, because this canard will be actuated at this location, and so if it's in the way, it's going to jam the mechanism and potentially damage the canards. So we can do that. Can fix this by, let's actually pull this back, right? So this is looking decent right now. I'm just gonna fix this together. So I'm gonna remove the background here. I do have like a board where I keep all the materials, so I'm gonna grab that real quick. But here's some tape. Alright, so this is what I'm talking about. It's just a bunch of materials, raw materials to work with. Okay, I'll just put that to the side for now. There's like all sorts of different things here. So, those are the raw materials from which I make this stuff out of. Anyways. Alright, so let's fix up this side here. The side little gap there. So this is about the width of a piece of tape actually, so that's rather perfect. Alright, so we just need to grab a little strip here. Don't need too much, just kind of have to get enough to really secure it down, and then we should be all set. So we're just trying to fix this gap at the moment, right? We kind of assembled this piece in a hurry last time because we were running overtime, but you know, this is the first step today, just fixing up this little joint here. So there you go, half on, right? This is gonna be a little bit tricky because the canards are right there. So you're gonna have to be a little careful. All right, so that's, you know, we're just using a ruler to really secure that down. I'm gonna pinch this little gap closed and wrap this around. There we go. That's much better. It's now a complete, I guess, finished edge. So that's good. Now that's only the forward portion here. So the fulcrum is actually right here. Okay, so that's where everything rotates about. We still have the back side here, just a little tiny bit. It's not that much, but we should still account for that. So I think actually half width would be perfect for this. All right, so you just take your standard, I guess, band of tape, and then just cut it in half to get into that little corner there. I think this might be a little bit wide. No, actually this is just about right, but if it's a little wide, we can always cut it so that it matches. Right, so again, on the top here, oops, there we go. All right, top here, we're just securing this tape into this location, right, with our ruler. And then on the bottom here, if you take a look, you can see that it is actually in the way just a tiny bit. I don't know if you guys can see that, but that edge right there is being blocked. So actually we could just cut it like that. So it's not a very clean cut, but going right up to it like that, and then that looks good. And just tightly wrap this down, making sure not to rip it because we did cut it a little bit, so you just gotta make sure you don't rip off that piece of tape. All right, and then that's it. That's sealed. So now this hinge right here, that surface should be all set to go. Oh, this is the actuation, right? So it still works. It's not in the way or anything. Actually, it's working quite well without the without the tape on the other side. But just for sake of peace of mind, you should just tape that down. That's how I approach these things. Just it might not be a problem, but it's better to not leave it to chance, right? All right, so here we go. Same idea. Just a little band here. I swear, it's like all these tiny little details. They take a lot of time and energy to try and get right. That's why it takes a long time to build these prototypes. You look at my previous designs; they are usually rougher in nature, and so they didn't take as much time, which is good, right? You get a plane that flies. You get instant gratification like that, but I'm at a stage in my life where I can afford to spend more time on each project, and I'm not in a rush. So this is like, I feel like I'd be doing this when I'm retired as well, but I just I'm starting like 40 years early. So, but you just compress that down really tight and then wrap that around the edge. There we go. That looks pretty clean. And that's a smooth edge. So again, we'll cover the nose later, so you don't have to worry about that now. But this is the handle. The little knob back here is a little bit weak because it is just 4 layers of plastic. So you gotta pinch it and make sure you don't buckle it or anything. Yeah, it's just a little tiny bit sketchy. And also these canards are interfering with this little edge here. I think it's because I've added so many layers that this edge is starting to move out a little bit. So there's a little bit of interference issue, but I think that won't be a problem for the most part because this is basically up elevator equivalent on a canard configuration. And that's quite a bit of angle, and it's already, it's only just hitting this edge. So I think it's actually like kind of nice. It's like a stop of sorts. It stops the canard from moving too much. But it's like purely unintentional. Like I did not design for that. I think it's a result of this fulcrum actually being levitated up from the edge a little bit. So if you notice, right, this surface, there's a little step here, right? Yeah, there's a little step there. So it's very interesting because I think that step wasn't an issue until I added the second, I guess, cereal box fuselage base around. So there's 2 layers, right? So there's one layer that you build the top off of, and there's one layer on the bottom. And then I think what I did was in the middle of the 2 layers, I added a popsicle stick, or several, and what that does is it results in kind of a tapered shape, right? And if you have a tapered shape like that, and you have a straight, hinge, fulcrum, in the mechanism, that's going to appear levitated off of the edge. I don't know if that made any sense, but I can try and sketch it out for you guys to really explain what's going on here. I think it's interesting and potentially important knowledge. Um, well, it might not be too important, but it's still rather interesting. So you have your sheet here, you have a, your popsicle stick, and then you have your layer down here. And then once you seal these edges, it becomes kind of a shape like this, right? So if you have like a mechanism that goes like that on the top, connects to the canards like that, it would appear flush in this configuration until you add this, where the lips come down here and then your hinge just continues to go straight like that. And so there's this tiny little gap here. And that's what we're seeing. Let me just zoom in a little bit. Yeah, that's what we're seeing here. And then that's what's also causing this little gap here, which I think it actually looks interesting. It kind of reminds me of the, if you know the French Raphael. Yeah, kind of reminds me of the canards on that. It's like kind of lifted above the main wings, right? It's a little bit higher than on the main wings, than the plane, like the flat 2D 2D surface of the wing. So that's an interesting little detail. I did not account for that, but it is what it is, and actually it looks a little bit interesting. So I'm just gonna leave it as is. Just gotta be careful when you actuate the canards back, not to damage it too much. Also, you don't need that much of an angle in the first place for this canard because it's a pretty big surface, and this is already at like, I don't know, like I'd say maybe like 20 degrees, 20 to 30 degrees already. So you don't really need too much adjustment with these things. But it's still interesting to note. All right, let's finish off the other side here. I got sidetracked trying to explain the little details in the design to you guys. But I really enjoy these things, it's like these small details, these, little areas where you can have a little bit of thought and you can ponder about. That's kind of where the interesting bits of this hobby lie. I just tell myself and tell my close friends that I live for the details, right? I love design, right? Not only airplanes, but everyday things. And really the details make up the design, so you really should, when you're doing these things, when you're doing anything creative, really, you should consider the details deeply, really know what you're working with. It's nice. It's very interesting because once you get into the habit of doing that, you regularly enter the state of intense concentration, right? And you lose track of a sense of time, really. I think it's called a state of flow, right? So you're in the zone, right, so to speak, and then it's actually been documented. It's like psychologically, it's a kind of state of mind where you're intensely focused, and you lose track of time, and you're doing something you really enjoy. And that's kind of what I found with this hobby, is that it's you tend to do that once you get into it. The hardest part about it is getting started, because some of these projects can get really complicated really fast, right? For example, me doing this Astro M1 project here, and it's there's multiple mechanisms, and we're gonna add a landing gear system later, and it's just it's pretty involved and pretty daunting when you think about it. Like, I want to achieve that goal, but you don't have to do it all in one sitting. You can break it up into weeks, right? Weekly sessions. I've been doing this project for a couple months now, actually. It may not seem like it, It's just a paper airplane, but it's been several months in the making. maybe even years, just thinking about the design like passively, right? Drawing the design and just working with it um, long term, right? So it's not just like I want to make a plane, I made a plane, and then we're done. It's more of a long term. I don't want to get sappy and say love affair, but it is kind of a love affair because you get invested in these projects, and you really want to make the best thing possible, and so you just enter that state of flow. You pay attention to the details, and it's I think it's very rewarding, personally speaking, but I can't speak for everybody. So I think I saw a comment there, so I'm gonna check that out. So Ahmet Yusuf Ozer says, "Can I ask a question? How you calculate this airplane wing surface area and wing height?" Um, so that's the other interesting bit, right? Since you're new around here, I usually this is my answer for these types of questions is that I don't actually do a lot of math, at least not for this hobby, right? I might be an aerospace engineer in degree, in training, and in profession, but when I'm doing these projects on the side, these are personal projects, of course. Uh, I do not do much calculation, at least not yet. When I move to RC airplanes, I can see myself potentially doing more calculations, but for these paper glider level aircraft, I'm going mostly based off of intuition, right? So what I've worked with in the past, what general size, what general weight works, right? And just the design around these, I guess, desktop class models is kind of centered around that intuition, that basic idea of, hey, if I reduce the amount of if I make things smoother, it's gonna fly faster through the air, right? If I increase the wing area a little bit, it'll be a little bit more floaty when it flies, right? Things like that. So for this design, I just this is I always say, like, on these streams, um my channel was founded based off of the idea that you know you're operating with these projects, you're operating in the intersection of art and science, right? This isn't purely engineering, right? This is a little bit of art and design as well, because we're not doing these L over D calculations. We're not doing aerodynamic analyses. Because quite frankly, at this level, at this scale, right, at this, this model is probably about, like, I'm going to show you right here. It's 10 1/4 inches. So 10.25 inches. It's not that large. And so the Reynolds number that we're dealing with here is very low, right? And so you don't see a lot of the interesting effects of turbulence and vortices at this scale, right? But I will say, like, in general, you still need a wing, you still need a stabilizer of some sort, and you need a vertical stabilizer, which we will install later. But that is kind of my philosophy for these desktop class designs, is that you go purely based off of intuition. You just want to build something, right? And you just go ahead and build it, and then you iterate on that, right? So you build more and more planes based off of your previous experience. It's like, okay, I can build this a little bit lighter, a little bit larger, get a little bit more wing area to get a lower wing loading, right? That's an actual term used in aircraft design, but it's none of that is put down in numerical form, right? I don't do the actual calculations because, quite frankly, the only measurements I have of this thing are its length, and that's pretty much it. Like, I don't know the surface area because I didn't actually measure the amount of paper used. I don't have, like, a scale at home. I don't have the weight, and so it's not like a pure engineering project. It's more of a intersection between engineering and art and design, because there are moving parts in this, right? This is the canard actuation system, right? You can move the front surface here. But I wouldn't say it's engineering. It's kind of an intersection between the two, and that's where I like to operate, right? So leading edge slats, right? You retract them here, and then when you pull back, you deploy them, right? It's a very slight movement, but I think it's quite beautiful. It's part of the appeal of fighter aircraft is when you're in these high G turns, you need your slats to be down to allow for smoother airflow over the wings and things like that. So I think I saw another comment, so I'm going to go ahead and read that. Hopefully that answered your question. If you still have more questions, please feel free to continue asking them. So I study aerospace engineering and I want to learn it. Yeah, that's what I majored in as well in college. I graduated in 2019, so a year ago, a little over a year and a half ago. Got a degree in aerospace engineering. I don't regret it, but if I had to do it again, I would probably just do mechanical engineering because that's mostly what my job is these days. Very few people actually get to design airplanes in real life. It's a small team that is responsible for that. Benjamin Rogers says, well, you cover the bottom mechanism for slats, the part that juts out with a sheath or panel, or is it open for a reason? Yeah, it's not done yet, so we will work on this bottom part. This bottom is definitely not finished, right? So there's seams here, there's a long seam here, we need to cover that, we need to cover this, we need to cover this outboard here, and we need to install the landing gear. So we're definitely not close to being done. It may look like that, but I feel like we still have a bit to go left on this project here. So we'll see how this turns out. This will be very interesting. I think this will require a little bit finessing, right? Because you don't have like a solid structure to build off of here. This is going to be very interesting. I think I'm going to build like a loft structure around here. It's going to look a little bit weird, but if it's intentional, it'll look a little bit more acceptable here. I also think like from the side profile here, it's we could go with a little bit more thickness, and that would add to the side profile here. I'm gonna taper it off in the back like that, slant it up. Of course, not that severely, but you get the idea. But yeah, we'll work our way there slowly, step by step, right? You don't want to rush these things. This is already months in the making, so I don't want to ruin it by rushing things too early. I mean, that's definitely like a strategy though, because you can make planes really, really fast and then improve on them really quick. But to me, I want to put some thought and depth behind each prototype, and so I just spend a little bit more time with each. That was definitely not the case in the past, where I usually iterated a lot quicker. So you see like YX1, 2, 3, all the way up until 9, and then YX10 is where I really started to slow down and work on these long term instead of in one sitting. So just kind of some background insight there. I'm gonna just trim off this little edge here. It's a little bit rough, so just get rid of that. Okay, so I think we're good now. I think we're going to cover this middle piece here. We're gonna add another panel here to smooth out this asymmetry, right? It's not very symmetric in the front, and it'll sharpen out the nose profile a little bit, and then we can build a nose cone, so to speak, over that. So that's going to be the next step here. I'm going to do that right now. I think this is the template that we used from last time, potentially. Oh no, this is one of the pieces that went here. Because you see that little notch? Yeah, that little notch is for the hinge, right? So you can't use that. God, I need to keep better track of my templates here, but let's see. So I think this might be it. Let's flip this over and see. Yeah, this is the one. So we're gonna go based off of this. We're gonna develop a new template. I'm not sure about that actually. I think we can. It's a pretty straightforward part, so we might be able to get away with doing one piece. Just trying to get it in one shot. Just grabbing some scrap material here off to the side. I encourage you to use this time to work on your own projects as well. You know, just keep this on in the background so you don't have to always watch. But here it is. I just take this and trying to make the best use out of this material here. Alright, so I think, so I'm gonna mark some geometry on this. So we don't want it to be full width because there is curvature down the middle, right? So we want it to end here. Come out like halfway and then go all the way down here to the back. So I think that'll do. So you might not have seen a lot of markings on this, but this goes all the way up to the nose. So we should be all set there. And then this is going to go with a line straight back. Okay. Something like that. So I need to transfer this onto a new template because I just don't want to stick with the old, modify the old template because we might need this template. But this should be interesting. This is yeah, I've never done this before actually, so I'll be watching this for the first time as well. So we're going to this here and then that. Actually just make it approach that width here. Okay. There we go. And I'm going to grab my eraser real quick just to clean up some of the lines here. It's a very simple shape. I'm just going to cut this in. Just move this down a little bit. Okay. Okay, we have a fold, and just using symmetry, I can transfer that shape on to the other side. Well, it's not that complicated of a shape, but that front nose portion should be symmetric now. So you just gotta be careful when you're tracing these templates. Just lightly trace this. That's a very light line, but I can see it, so as long as I can see it, then I don't need to. I just need to be a little careful when I'm cutting, but should be all set to go. This is the template for that cover. There we go. Very nice. Now we can see how it fits. The final piece is going to be different, but you can see how this panel will fit here. That's going to look quite nice, I think. Although we might actually have to break it up because there's a little bit of a buckling issue here. Yeah, there's a little bit of buckling here. Alright, we'll figure that out as we go. We need this part to be made in cardstock material. It's a much stronger paper. I'm sure you guys know. Can I fit this in here? Wow, I can just barely fit it in here. That's perfect. Okay, maybe I should reverse this. Yeah, that's nice. Alright, not only do I make use out of this little strip of paper here, I also don't need to cut one edge, right? So that's always nice. That's pretty good. This side. That's the thing. So you gotta constantly change angles here and try and get a good position. Yeah. So this mat is getting a little sticky. I think it's because it's a little bit more humid today. It's 70 degrees in November, which is kind of insane. And people still deny climate change. Unbelievable. But yeah, it was like 30 a couple days ago. It's like 30, 40 something weather. And today, all of a sudden, surprise, we're back to summertime. Yeah. There we go. That should be good. Every component, every panel, crafted with precision. That's the philosophy here. There we go. Rip that little tab off there. Alright, so that looks okay. It's a little bit rough, but I think it's doable. So there's a little strip down here. Alright. So now we are going to start securing this to the lower front fuselage here. And we're starting by applying tape this way, wingspan wise, all the way to the front. I think that might resolve the buckling issue. It's I don't know, I'm not sure if it will, but the curvature is pretty slight, so it leads me to believe it might be possible. Alright, yeah, sorry about that. Phone overheated as predicted. So here we are, back at it again. It might happen again, so it's really warm today. It's like 70 degrees, and I don't want to like turn on the AC again because it's freaking November. It doesn't make sense to do so. But because I'm actually comfortable. It's just the phone that's overheating. So anyway, getting back to the topic here. Just trim this excess off. I have a feeling it might actually go offline this stream. So if that does happen, I'll start a new one. If I can't resume the current one. So that's kind of the strategy going forward. Yeah, I got a comment here. Nope, no I did not. All right. Alright, it's looking okay right now. Just trim that off. Move the scrap to the side. And just trim off the other side. Again, I apologize for the interruption. It's just a little bit warm today. And my phone overheated, which is kind of interesting. Hopefully that won't be a problem with my new phone that I'll be getting in December. It's about time for an upgrade. Yeah, my current phone, the battery is shot. It's like absolutely destroyed. It's like starting to puff out, and so that's like separating the screen, and you know that's only the battery issues and the screen issues. But I'm also having some camera issues where there's a dark spot. You might not be able to see it in the stream, but there is a dark spot that it's really annoying. And also Face ID doesn't work on my 3-year-old iPhone 10 anymore. So I'm probably gonna upgrade to the 12 Pro Max. It's gonna be a little big for me, but the camera is great on that flagship. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that, but it'll be a month or two before that happens. Can't believe it's already November. It's like it doesn't feel like it. It still feels like September-ish. But this year has been absolutely weird for a lot of people. So to be expected. You kind of lose track of sense of time when you're home all the time. You don't go out much, and it just feels different. All right, so I think we got most of that done. Actually, we got it done. This middle panel here, yeah, it's looking great. It looks a lot cleaner now, the nose. I will have to add a nose cone cover thing. I'm thinking about doing it in white. I'm not sure if white will work, but I think over time, as the gray fades out, it'll be better. It'll be less contrasty, but if I do white right now, I think this might stand out a little bit. Add some contrast to the nose, make it very observable, I guess. Just grab my keyboard real quick, search up something on the internet here real quick. So I kind of alluded to this before, but I'm trying to, it's kind of inspired off of this plane, which is from Ace Combat, which is a game that I really enjoy playing. Let me just grab this real quick, show you guys. So, orange wingtips, right? Orange slats, gray body fuselage, gray body and fuselage, white nose. So I think I'm gonna go with white for this design. So that's gonna be a little bit interesting. Try to emulate that plane, but of course it's not the actual plane. I think I might do an SU-30 in the future. It's been a while since I've built a flanker, so that'll be interesting, but that's a project for later. So I guess white it is then. In that case, we would have to we'd have to get out some white cardstock. But before I do that, I'm gonna try and create kind of a template here for the nose. So let's see what geometry we actually need, or if it's even possible. Because if we can get away with using print paper, that might actually do the trick, right? Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting because it's a very tight curvature area. So if we zoom in a little bit here, how do we wrap something around this? It's very sharp on the edge, but overall it's still quite I don't know how to describe it. It's just very blunt. Not sure. I think we might have to do it in 4 pieces. One going across the top here, one going across the bottom here, and then little strips off to the side that really finish off that seam. So let's get the top bit going first. Sorry, there's a little strip of tape and it's really getting in the way here. Okay. Come on. Get off my finger, man. Alright, there we go. Sorry about that. Alright, so we need to grab the nose here. So how long should this be? I feel like an inch might. Oh, that's my centimeter ruler. This is my inch ruler. I really need a new ruler here. This thing is so chipped and beat up. I think 1 inch should be enough. Maybe 1 1/4. Or 1 1/2. 1 1/2 seems decent. So that'll go up until about here, which looks proportional to the rest of the airplane, kind of. 2 is a little bit too much, I feel like. So 1 1/2-ish. Oh, it's cut down from 1 1/2. Alright, so 1 1/2, and I don't know how much we need on this side, but I'm willing to bet this width right here is enough to cover this nose. So I'm gonna measure out 1 1/2 and then just cut a straight line across. There we go. This pencil is a little bit loose. Oh, interesting. This is a drafting pencil too. Yeah, it's like a little tiny bit loose there, the plastic fit. Also, I don't think this is a perpendicular edge, so I don't know. I might just straight line gun it here. There we go. Just cut off a partition of that paper. Try and use it to make that template. So for these kind of aesthetic panels, I'm okay with actually using printer paper because it is not structural. But since this is in the nose, you kind of want it to handle these crashes and be durable enough to not tear. So I'm going to go with probably cardstock for this final piece, but in development you can still use printer paper to get an accurate shape here. So I'm gonna do that. I think a straight line would be good. We don't need, do we need like serrations? That would make it look nice. Decisions. Let's just temporarily tape it here. Let's get the front profile here done. Let's get the shape down. Trace it out, right? So we temporarily secured it here. This piece that covers 1.5 inches up. And then I'm just gonna flip it over onto the underside here. Oh, that's actually interesting. If we fold this over, this has got me thinking. Could do that. That would be a clean edge, but wouldn't be able to control the geometry here too much. We'd still have to make some cuts to approximate this curve, so it's not going to be perfect. So I think we're just going to do our best here and interesting. So I think it might actually be possible to add some little tabs here that fold over, because if we make like a constant offset curve here that folds over onto this bottom side, and we make, you know, like 1 or 2 cuts, that's workable. It's not gonna be too obvious, and quite frankly the underside here already has some of that geometry, so 1 or 2 cuts here shouldn't be a problem. And then once that folds over, we can use a panel piece to cover over that seam and form the bottom panel here. So we actually don't need 4 pieces, which thankfully saves a lot of time. We only really need 2, one for the top here, one for the bottom, but we need to get the top done here first. So let's just, mark that out, mark that. There we go. Just trace that edge across here. Okay. It looks pretty good to me. The only thing I'm concerned about is this tip. It's not very sharp. It's a little bit blunt. I need to finish that off. and make sure the geometry is good there. So what we can do is create an offset here. So this is going to be a little bit of an eyeball job. And that should do the trick. You fold this over hard onto itself, and then you trim this outline here. Okay, so that's gonna look something like that with tabs that fold over. Oh, that looks actually really nice. I really like that. So if you zoom out a little bit, just taking the temperature of my phone into account here, that looks okay. So it looks very contrasty on the phone, but in real life it actually works. It appears a little bit different, and I can imagine, like, with the serrations it'll look quite nice. It'll look in place here, so that's good. So this is like painting, but not really. This is like applying a skin, more like, you know, it's not exactly painting, but this should do the trick. And well, I'm not actually sure about these tabs on the side. That's just an idea. We can always cut those off later. So, but the bottom here should be interesting. Also the top, like, once this is in place, we need to correct for that slant. So I'm just gonna directly cut this, because that's the easiest way to transfer that geometry to the other side as well. So there we go, slight slant like that, which when you map that geometry around the nose, it actually looks straight. Yeah. Yep, you look from the side, looks a little bit better. Okay. And now I have to look at how to do the serrations here. So that's our edge, that's our edge. So if we do that, that, that. Is that a little too much? No, that's quite nice. All right, let's just cut that. See how that works. it's only 2 triangles that we cut out, but when you fold it across like that, it becomes this serrated pattern here. So I think it looks really clean. Actually, the middle looks a little bit whack. And that's because it's like one of these triangles, but like stretched out a little bit. So it looks a little bit strange. It's pretty close. I think to me it's let's see here. Let's see how this looks. I think we can steepen this a little bit. I'll make it a little less wide, more in line with the rest. Yep, that looks good. Okay, and then time for the white cardstock. This could be interesting. So I'm looking for that material right now. Actually, don't think I have a lot of white cardstock. It's very strange. I have like all sorts of colors of cardstock, but I just don't have white. I have orange. I even have black. I just don't have white. Dang. Oh, no, just kidding. I have a thick stack of white. There we go. I'm just wondering if I already have an open pack of cardstock here. This is kind of white-ish. Yeah, alright. I think that's good. This is like a cooler white, too. It's not a white. Actually, let's compare it to the printer paper. Yeah, it's a cooler white. It's not as warm. You might not be able to see the difference, but this is a little bit yellow. Might be because it's out in the open for a while and this is fresh. But I just need one sheet of this. This is more of a decorative feature, so it's not too critical. Okay. Yeah, it's just the nose here that we need, but you know, this is how it fits right now as it stands. I don't know, I'm starting to think the straight line looks a little better. What do you guys think? Do you like the straight line or the serrated edge? I feel like the straight line is just cleaner. It's a cleaner, you know, break between the two. I think I'm gonna go with straight. Yeah, just reading some comments right now about the phone that's rough, and also true battery may be a fire risk when the same thing happened to the old Galaxy S5 where the battery swelled up. I'm thinking about getting a Galaxy Z Fold 2. Yep. Yeah, a new phone is always nice, but not everybody can afford to do that. So, but I'm getting it as a gift, so I don't have to really worry about that. Nice. MX keys have the craft keyboard. It's basically the same thing, but with the dial for editing. Yeah, I actually consciously made a choice not to get the dial one because I knew like this is only a temporary situation working from home. Once I get back to the office, if I'm used to having that dial, it's going to be painful switching back to an old Dell keyboard that's wired at my office. Um, I like also it just looks cleaner, this MX keys without the dial. But I can imagine like for creative use, you can zoom in and out and do lots with it. Also, it's like double the price of the MX keys. I think it's a lot more expensive, so saved a little bit of money there. But usually with tools, I go all out, like creative tools, computing, right? Like computers, phones. I kind of just have kind of an open wallet in that sense. I spend a lot less on like eating out and food, so it kind of balances out. But you know, everybody has their own vices. Mine is technology. I tend to spend a lot on technology and design products. All right, I think I'm gonna go with like a straight cut here because this zigzag is a little bit too distracting from the rest of this plane. It just looks a little bit weird. So straight edge would clean that up. I'm also thinking about using white cardstock for the kind of the I don't know how you would call it, but like a little piece here that'll seal together the wings, right? It's like a reinforcement layer that like folds over it, right? But it's gonna be thin like that. Also gonna add one here and use white cardstock also for the vertical tail. The vertical tail has got to be pretty durable in this case because it's pretty offset from the wing. So I'm gonna probably create a base layer that's folded in half and then layer on top of that a cardstock gray. So you have gray cutouts, right, with white on the inside. And then finally adding like an orange band of cardstock. So it'll be very thick. It'll be very, you know, beefy, but this plane is quite beefy already, so you need a matching vertical tail to make that work. So anyways, enough talk. Let's get working here on this piece. So what we need is this component, but without the serrations, which is going to be very interesting. I don't know how I'm gonna get that, but I feel like it's just, you know, you just try and make it happen. That's, I don't know, there's like, you know, there's like a subreddit called Rest of the Fucking Owl, which I feel like sometimes my tutorials and videos are kind of like that. It's like you just do step A, step B, and then you just do the rest, you know? But really, I don't know how to explain my process. It's a little bit erratic in the sense that I kind of just go with the flow and see what works, what doesn't. There's kind of like a general idea of what I want to do, but I don't actually I don't actually know what I'm doing. That's the fun part, right, of design, is that you don't really know what you're doing, and sometimes there are happy accidents that work out really well. But as long as you keep everything nice and tidy, things should work out. It's really bad advice because I'm not actually a designer. I am an engineer, so. But there we go. We can just connect the dots here. So we don't have to cut out the serrations. And then for the side pieces, this will be interesting. So I think it's like here to here, here to, where is it? So this is not going to be an exact geometry, so that sucks. But hopefully this is enough to wrap around the nose. These side margins give us a little bit of options there. So I'm just feeling the phone right now. It's a little bit warm. Hopefully it doesn't cut out, but it might because it's an old phone. Okay, we're just cutting out some parts here. There we go, just cut off that. And just need to cut off this bit here. So this bit is tricky. So you want to align this perfectly. I'm actually going to tape the back now because this is the final piece. This is the final component. So we can actually securely attach this once and for all. So a full length piece of tape here. So we're just gonna build the nose cone like that. Again, this is going to take a little bit of time. This is where precision is required. Well, it's required everywhere for this plane, but okay. Looks pretty good so far. Okay, so now we're going to make several cuts here. So we're going to make a cut at about 1/3 and 2/3. I'm going to try our best to match it on the other side. Right. Okay. So we'll just work our way towards the front slowly. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to apply half width of tape to each side. The full length won't work because it's not that wide. Just tightly wrap that here. Do the same thing for the other side. Okay, and just get the next set across here. Alright, let's see if there are any comments. Nope. Alright. Alright, so there's a little bit of a bump there, but should be okay for the most part. Let's continue with the other side. Okay, well, we are getting there. Just need a little bit more here. Okay, so just put that here. This little bit of excess. And then the last piece here is for the top. There's a little tiny hole in the front. You see that, but I'm not sure there's a way to resolve that. But anyways, we're gonna cover the bottom here, and I think the bottom piece might actually be able to handle that little cover. Like wrap around and then flip over to the top maybe. It just needs to be really freaking solid because this is like the first line of defense against ground impacts. Oh, I don't know. This looks pretty clean. It's a little bit contrasty at the moment, but I think after a little bit of wear and tear, it'll blend in a little bit more. So we are at 1.5 hours. So I usually go to 2 hours 10 minutes, so there's like 40 minutes left. We're gonna add the bottom panel here for the nose. Okay, to do that, we need to first make a template, like usual. So I'm just gonna cut off a little segment of this and work with that. Okay, just put it right there. Just gonna have to tape this here temporarily. Same strategy as the top. Cut to that edge. Want the sides to match up, so I'm gonna cut it to that edge. I know it's not gonna be like perfectly straight, but it'll have to do. Just realized I marked that little dot not on the middle, but on the tape. I mean, it might have been in the middle, but it wasn't on the paper, it was on the tape. Just gotta mark that again. Right about there. So this nose is a little bit bumpy. There we go. Alright, let's see how that matches up. Just making a slight adjustment here. Directly trimming off this without doing too much damage underneath. Really should have cut these in at an angle so that it wouldn't show on the side, but it's a little bit late for that. There we go. That's a good fit. Okay, all right, now we just need to transfer this onto the final piece here. Make the use out of this sheet of material. Oh, sorry about that. You guys can't really see. Alright, so I'm just going to trace this out. There we go. All right, we have geometry traced out now. I just need to cut this out and stick it onto the plane. There we go. And one last step, just trim this a little bit. And we should be all set. Should be a fairly symmetrical piece, so we can flip it over. It should be fine, but you never know. There you go. Just trim that. And then see how this fits. Not too bad. Let's tape this in place. So again, just grab a length of tape like that. Stick it on here. Okay, let's zoom out a little bit here. It's a very slightly different fit on each side. Alright, I think we're gonna have to trim a little bit to match the shape up. I think the right side, the starboard side, looks pretty close, but it's still a little bit off. But that's good. We have extra material to work with, so we can always trim that off. I'm just gonna trim it off directly. I'm not even gonna mark anything. There should be a nice seam here. And then this on the right side. I feel like we should tape down the other side first before we do that. That's probably a good call. Whoops. Go. Okay, now we can trim this side off. Same idea. Knife with tape. What is this? That should do the trick. There's even a little tip here that folds over. I'm not sure how I'm gonna attach that. Or maybe use the temporary piece that we used. Cut that. So there's not a lot of commentary today. It's mostly work. It's a quiet Friday evening. Okay. All right. When we're finishing up the plane, we will apply tape to the entire aircraft body to seal everything up, and that should hopefully cover the nose as well. But this nose looks decent. I think. Just give it a little background there. It looks pretty sleek, and this is highly reinforced. There are so many layers here, it's kind of insane. So hopefully it should handle some flight tests, some crashes really nicely. Alright, so we're pretty much done with the nose. So we had to work on this area and then the two landing gear. I'm not sure which one I should do first. Yeah, the landing gear, it's gonna take a while because it's a new idea. It might not work out. So I don't know, because if I finish this off, then this plane is pretty much done, besides the vertical stabilizers and then finishing off that part. But not sure. This is almost there. Almost there. Anyways, let me check for comments here. Nope, nothing. All right. Okay, very interesting. So I think we can start work on this bit right here, because that's one of the last major pieces that we need to get done, is a structure around this. I think we're going to need like a 3D structure because we can't exactly skin over this, because we need to give the mechanism some clearance. So there needs to be a little bit of a gap, and also that gap will serve as a cushion in case, you know, like this has a hard landing. It'll be able to handle that kind of situation. So we're gonna build something like kind of jutting out here, and then it's gonna be an aerodynamic penalty, unfortunately, but we need it to protect the mechanism. And once it's done, I think we can start working on the landing gear potentially, which includes this front portion. Actually, you know, like if we work on the landing gear, it's not gonna be like, it's not a guarantee, right? Because I don't know if it'll work. I might just not attach them to this final prototype. But if we do this, I'm just worried that the nose gear will be more difficult to install if I do that first. Yeah, I'm definitely concerned about the nose gear not being able to work here. So we might actually start with the nose gear. So once we can get the nose gear done, it doesn't even have to be symmetric, right? Well, yeah, it's there's only one nose gear, essentially. So the concept can be applied to the other two tricycle gear, right? So you can have the same mechanism, but just applied differently. But if you cover this up, you're not going to have enough room here in the front to attach the landing gear. So I'm just thinking, like, if I develop the landing gear now, if I get that done and out of the way and build this cover that integrates the landing gear cover and the it covers the rest of this, then I think that might actually work. So like this structure right here down the middle, it's going to jut out. So I can actually sketch this real quick for you guys to convey my ideas. So what we're gonna have is, got our airplane, right, kind of like that, and then there's canards here, and then main wing here. We're going to add kind of a box shape thing here that kind of goes back like that, juts out, and then goes back. And then that's going to act as a fairing for the landing gear, the nose gear here. And it's going to cover this mechanism. And also it's going to protect this mechanism because this, if you look at it from the side, will jut down like that and then, cover up the rest of the fuselage. The hinge will come down here, and then there's going to be a little bit of a gap, and when you impact the ground, it's going to have a little bit of give. It's going to act as a shell, protective shell around this mechanism. So that'll hopefully protect this, this leading edge slat mechanism, right? So this is a very bad sketch. I apologize, but this is like a very first order, just rough. I'm not even trying to get the details right because it'll convey a message, which is that we need to build some type of fairing around this, which integrates the landing gear, right? The landing gear will have a cover, and then, it'll open and things like that. But to do that, to build that structure, we need to get the landing gear done first. So we're just slowly working our way from the nose back, right? And then eventually we'll finish off the tricycle landing gear system, the main fairing here. We might even build like fairings for these two other landing gear systems. And then once we're done with that, just I think we might do another panel here to really thicken up this portion here. It's a little bit concave. So we'll just thicken that up a little bit, make it more beefy, and design the V-tail vertical stabilizers here, and put them on a boom and attach them. And I think that'll be pretty much it for this project, which, I make it sound like it's not a lot, but that is actually quite a few steps. So I'm expecting to finish this around December-ish, maybe late December, if I'm being generous, right? Because this structure is going to be pretty involved. It's quite a task to get this going. So we'll see how it goes. So this has to jut out, and then come here, and then all right. So I guess. All right, so we do need a plan for this, because I'm not sure if I can get the landing gear system to work. It's questionable because I've never actually developed a retractable landing gear system. I have some concepts in mind. It's just I have never done it before, so it might not even work. But that's kind of what I do, is I test different ideas and whatnot, prototype, and I tinker. And so get started with that process here. So the way I want it to work is, let me just zoom out a little bit so you guys can actually see better. The way I want it to work is flip open like that. So first of all, we need to determine where the center of gravity is. So right now, it's right about here. Yeah, that's a little bit unstable, but if I use 2 fingers, it is right here, right at this corner of this cutout. I think the ideal location is going to be a little bit forward of that. So I think that should be good. So the CG will be within this envelope right here, which is good because if we put tricycle gear here, here, and here, that falls within the footprint of our plane, so it won't tip over to one side. The landing gear, I think the front gear will take a lot of the force because the CG is really close to that, and so the rear two aren't going to be as beefy, I guess. I'm not sure how to say it, but yeah, I think this is approximately where I want to place the rear landing gear. So it's going to be pretty close together, because if it's all the way back here, then you don't have, so we're not actually going to take off this plane, right? But if you place it back here, it's going to have a huge lever arm to overcome, to lift off, to take off. But we're not taking off anyways, so I think it also looks better if it's closer together and more, it's more balanced that way. So we're probably gonna place one here, here, and here. So we need to work on the nose one first, and then we can build the fairing around. And we can design the aft landing gear in place. So if this comes up a little bit, we need to account for that height, right? When we need to account for that height when we install the landing gear. So, hoo boy, this is going to be an interesting ride. Yeah, so I have several concepts. I can start sketching out what I want to do. So really our landing gear is going to be stowed like that. It's going to be a diagonal to the fuselage here, and essentially we need it to rotate so that it comes out, and then it's going to be relatively stiff and stable, right? So it's going to rotate out, and then it's going to kind of lock in place here. So we're going to kind of put this end in a loop here. So it's going to be kind of like a skid, so to speak. I'm thinking like some sort of lever here, so that once it comes out enough, actually this might be a little bit too steep, but a lever like that, right? Because, you know, with a piece like that, then once it comes out from its, I guess this is not, how are we gonna stow this? Do we want it to come forward like that? No, I don't think that's gonna be realistic. So actually, we have our concept sketch right here, so we can take a look. In my concept sketch, I placed the landing gear ahead of the canard, and it actually points forward and back. That's interesting to note. But anyways, the phone is a little bit warm, but hopefully it shouldn't be a problem. Alright, so I don't know. I don't think I can make a compound design. That'll be a little bit too difficult. I just need it to be simple and reliable. Just something simple that turns. Okay, maybe. So I think this is like about the limit. So that's kind of our fairing design. This is kind of where it's going to be stored, right? And it's going to have to come all the way forward like that. Actually, if it's coming forward like that, then maybe the shape should be like that. So it's a steeper triangle like that. So it just kind of swings out like that. It has to be small too. We don't have a friction lock core. We don't have like a actuation mechanism. This is free swinging on its own. So it has to click into place somehow. Click. Not sure actually. I am not sure how to do this. So, just some initial concepts here. How are we gonna get it to rotate? Probably through one of these coils of some type. And then we'll lock it with a Z-bend and have it do its own thing like that. That way it can rotate. So this might be at an angle. And then this can actually be bent in to be centered. Yeah, that can be a good design choice there. Center that. And then this lever arm, it's like a Z-bend, so it stops it from shifting around. But if it's like that, then we can even get this to, if we apply a spring force here, we can get it to come out like that. So I'm not sure. So these are like initial concepts, right? So I don't actually know what I'm doing. So we'll just try and work our way out of this. I think actually, so if we're going to place the landing gear here, the pivot here, near the front of the canard, then we can actually afford to keep it flush. So the fairing will be flat here, and then it'll start to come out here. So it'll be formed along the fuselage, kind of constant thickness or of some sort, right? So if it's flat, and that actually gives us a lot of freedom to do some different things here. If we have a compression spring, I usually don't like compression springs because they're hard to control. They like to buckle. That's one of the defining characteristics of these, clicky pen springs is that when you push them together on two ends, they tend to buckle a little bit. So if we want it to turn out like that, then this hinge needs to be off a little bit, which would require a bigger fairing. Damn. Yeah, this is some hard trade-offs that you need to make here. So what I'm thinking is you can design this pivot point to be anywhere, but if you want it to be off your fuselage, you have to build a little bit off like that or like that, right? Support it somehow, and then have your landing gear system be stored like that, and then you have your very space efficient pretension mechanism here that pulls in. This is still a lever arm away from this pivot point, right? And then you have your landing gear here, right? Your triangular skid landing gear. And so that pulls here, and your landing gear pops out. Right, so this will be like that. Oh, whoops, yeah, this is off. This is not right. This is not an accurate sketch, but something like that. And then the whole fairing just goes around this thing. So its default position is retracted. So how do we keep it from going back? So I'm gonna have to, like, outside of this stream, I'm gonna have to design a little bit for this mechanism, come up with something. But I think we have a general idea here, is that you don't want to extend the length dimension of this mechanism too much, so you can't have tension going in that way. So tension aft is necessary, right? So you have a spring force pulling back. You need your fulcrum offset from your fuselage, which requires a space frame to support that structure, and this needs to be rigid. This needs to be like a solid anchor point. So if you have like a part that looks like this, right, and then it coils onto itself like that, and then that acts as a bearing, right, and then somehow we're attaching this in place. Right, anchor this in place. This is fixed. And then we have a coil that goes there. So we can have a piece component that goes like that, wraps around, right, like that, to center the landing gear system. And then this comes out here and then centers itself here, and then comes back out. It might even be at an angle, but this has an end loop here, and then we can put an elastic band here that can pull towards, actually, so if we make that come together, we can make that the anchor, so it's self-sustaining. I don't know if I have a rubber band that long, but we can figure something out. This is not going to be a huge piece. This can actually be shortened up, so this is going to be a little difficult to convey. So a little piece like that, little piece like that. That comes up, and then here it closes itself off, and then you have your spring here, like spring, and then your same axis landing gear coming here, and then your landing gear triangle skid, so that's gonna want to pop out at all times. So I don't know, maybe like a sliding cover here that moves back and forth. Like you slide the cover back and then it just pops out. Something like that, maybe. It'll be an interesting experiment. So this doesn't need to be so wide. So, well, it is what it is. Just trying to think of mechanical designs that might actually work here. And this has to be very tightly integrated, right? It has to be small volume because we can't have like this massive box of a mechanism hanging off the bottom of the plane, right? We need to have it be very compact, very space efficient, but also very reliable. That's the key to this mechanism. Yeah, pretension. So it's going to be default. It wants to be open. And then, so you have your plane, right? So it looks like that, and then you have your tail here, your main wing, your bottom fuselage. So your landing gear in default wants to be I guess, yeah, like that. It wants to be open. This is the direction, right? Just gotta make sure, design a way to do that, keep it like that, and then when you want to fly, we need a mechanism so that when you fold this in, you have like a little lock, little cover or something to just prevent it from coming out. That's when you want to fly, and then that switch, that little cover has to be very solidly built. And then this, it has, so that's the basic idea. It's going to come out both ways like that, right? And then that's the default position. It wants to be there. So when you do land, actually the spring force will act as kind of a suspension, right? It'll bounce a little bit. And then what else? So it wants to deploy open, but then you need a switch. So pretension, and lock. These are the two key things that we need for this design. So that's pretty much it for today. Thanks for tuning in. Stay safe out there. We're hitting our 1 hour 30-minute mark, or 130-minute mark. There we go. So, all right. Talk to you guys next time. Please stay safe. These are weird times, right, with the election and everything. So stay safe, and I'll talk to you guys next week. Thanks for watching.